"You're not what I expected," Samuel Whitaker sneered, looking her up and down with a clear expression of disdain. The echo of his words sliced through Clara Matthews sharper than any blade, and though her cheeks burned, she held her chin high. She had traveled 2,000 miles by stagecoach, her dreams of a new life in Colorado nearly crushed in a heartbeat. The small town of Evergreen bustled around them, oblivious to Clara's humiliation. Her grip tightened around her small valise as whispers started spreading among the bystanders. Samuel adjusted his hat, eyes narrowing. "I requested a bride, not a—" He hesitated, the word lingering cruelly. "Well, let's just say you're too hearty for my taste." Clara forced her voice steady, though her heart hammered painfully in her chest. "You asked for a woman capable of managing a homestead, Mr. Whitaker. I assure you, my size doesn't affect my ability to cook, clean, or care for livestock." Samuel shook his head sharply. "I've no doubt you can manage livestock," he mocked cruelly, drawing laughter from a couple of rough-looking men nearby. She swallowed hard, refusing to show weakness, despite the bitter sting of tears in her eyes. "Then perhaps it's fortunate I've discovered your character before binding myself to you." With her dignity wrapped tightly around her like a cloak, Clara turned on her heel, marching away from the jeers, though she had no place else to go. Evening shadows stretched long as Clara found herself seated on a bench outside the general store, her future suddenly uncertain. Evergreen's dusty streets were quieting, gas lamps flickering to life. Her stomach growled painfully, a stark reminder she hadn't eaten since dawn. Pride had kept her from using the last of her coins, but pride wouldn't fill her stomach tonight. The door of the general store creaked open, drawing her attention upward. A broad-shouldered man stepped onto the wooden sidewalk, his presence imposing yet gentle somehow. She recognized him from earlier. He'd stood in the back of the crowd, his deep eyes unreadable beneath the brim of his hat. Now those eyes met hers, soft with quiet understanding. "Miss Matthews?" His voice was deep, soothing, a balm on her raw emotions. She straightened her shoulders, wary of more mockery. "Yes? My name is Caleb Hart. I couldn't help overhearing your—" He paused carefully. "Situation earlier." Clara's cheeks heated again, humiliation sharp and swift. She looked away, blinking rapidly. "I suppose everyone heard," she murmured. Caleb shifted, seeming uncomfortable but resolute. "I don't mean to pry, but do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" She hesitated, pride warring with desperation. Finally, she shook her head slowly. "No, Mr. Hart, I don't." He nodded decisively. "I've a ranch just outside town. It's modest but comfortable enough. My housekeeper, Mrs. Donovan, will chaperone, so there's no impropriety. You're welcome there until you decide what you wish to do next." Clara studied Caleb carefully. Lines around his eyes hinted at pain, perhaps loss. Beneath his rugged exterior was an unmistakable gentleness, something she hadn't expected to find in this harsh land. She wondered briefly at his story, at what brought shadows into those otherwise kind eyes. "I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Hart, but why offer me help?" Her voice was soft, guarded. "You don't even know me." Caleb's lips curled gently upward, eyes warm in the fading twilight. "I reckon everyone deserves kindness, Miss Matthews, especially after what I saw today." The sincerity in his voice washed over her, healing a tiny piece of her bruised heart. Trust was dangerous, she knew, especially here, far from everything familiar. Yet something about Caleb felt safe, authentic. "Then I accept, Mr. Hart," she said, rising with quiet dignity. "I'm grateful beyond words." As they walked silently toward his wagon, Clara couldn't ignore the strange sensation fluttering inside her chest, a delicate whisper of hope intertwined with caution. She cast one last glance toward Evergreen's main street, vowing silently that Samuel Whitaker wouldn't define her future. Clara Matthews was here to build a new life, and maybe, just maybe, Caleb Hart was part of that new beginning. The wagon rattled gently along the dusty road, the quiet evening broken only by the rhythmic creak of wheels and the distant cry of coyotes. Clara sat silently beside Caleb Hart, acutely aware of his steady presence. He handled the reins with practiced ease, his gaze fixed ahead, occasionally stealing glances her way beneath the brim of his hat. Clara's hands, folded tightly in her lap, trembled slightly. Despite Caleb's kindness, a nervous tension coiled within her. After Samuel's cruelty, trusting any man seemed impossible, yet something about Caleb's gentle demeanor gradually eased her anxiety. "We'll be there shortly," Caleb spoke quietly, breaking the silence. "Thank you again," Clara murmured softly, stealing a glance at his profile. "You didn't have to help me." "Sometimes, Miss Matthews," he said thoughtfully, his deep voice resonant, "we all need someone to step in, even if we don't ask." Soon, the wagon turned down a narrow path lined with cottonwoods, their branches forming a canopy over the trail. Ahead, a modest ranch house appeared, its windows glowing warmly in the dusk. Chickens scattered as they approached, and a dog barked cheerfully, bounding toward the wagon. "Easy there, Duke," Caleb chuckled as he pulled to a stop, hopping down swiftly to help Clara from the wagon. A stout, kindly-looking woman appeared in the doorway, wiping flour-dusted hands on her apron. "Caleb Hart, you're late. Supper's getting cold." She halted abruptly, eyes widening in surprise as she noticed Clara. "Oh, goodness, and who's this?" "Mrs. Donovan, this is..." warmly, bustling forward. "You're most welcome here, dear. Come inside before you catch a chill." Clara found herself enveloped in a comforting warmth as soon as she stepped inside. The smell of fresh bread and stew hung invitingly in the air, making a stomach rumble softly in response. Mrs. Donovan chuckled kindly, ushering her toward the table. "Sit, eat. You've had quite a day," Mrs. Donovan fussed, serving generous portions. As they ate, conversation flowed easily, Mrs. Donovan's cheerful chatter easing Clara's nerves. Caleb spoke little but listened intently, occasionally casting thoughtful glances Clara's way. She couldn't help but wonder about his quiet intensity, sensing layers beneath his reserved exterior. After supper, Mrs. Donovan insisted Clara retire early. Her room was modest but welcoming, a patchwork quilt neatly folded atop a soft bed. Exhausted yet restless, Clara stood by the window, gazing out into the moonlit night. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Caleb, standing alone near the fence line, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains, shoulders heavy with an unspoken burden. Curiosity stirred within her heart, mingling with an unfamiliar urge to offer comfort. Wrapping herself in a shawl, she quietly stepped outside. Caleb turned slightly at her approach, his expression guarded yet tinged with vulnerability. "Couldn't sleep." "Not yet," she admitted softly, coming to stand beside him. "I saw you from my window. Is everything all right?" He hesitated, eyes shadowed. "Some nights, memories don't let me rest easy." Clara sensed his guarded pain, recognizing echoes of her own struggles. "I understand," she whispered. "The past can be a relentless companion." Surprise flickered across his face, then softened into cautious warmth. "You've your own ghosts, then?" She nodded slowly. "Don't we all?" Caleb's voice grew quiet, introspective. "I lost someone dear to me. It changes you, makes trusting again difficult." Clara reached out hesitantly, placing a gentle hand upon his sleeve. "I learned today that trusting again can be terrifying, but perhaps it can also bring healing." Caleb's gaze met hers, intense yet tender. The quiet understanding between them deepened, filling the silence with an unspoken bond. His hand slowly covered hers, warm and comforting. "Perhaps you're right, Miss Matthews," Caleb murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Perhaps we can both find healing." They stood together beneath the wide expanse of stars, each carrying secrets, pain, and hope in equal measure. Clara knew in that quiet moment she'd begun walking a path she never anticipated, a path where fear, resilience, and tenderness intertwined. As Caleb walked her back toward the house, Clara felt a cautious optimism bloom within her. Maybe, just maybe, their scars could become the foundation. Peaceful, despite the uncertainty that still lingered at the edge of her thoughts. As she dressed and braided her hair neatly, she noticed fresh clothes folded neatly at the foot of her bed. She smiled softly, touched by Mrs. Donovan's thoughtful gesture. Stepping outside, she inhaled deeply, savoring the fresh scent of dew-soaked grass and wildflowers. Caleb was already at work, repairing a section of fencing damaged by a storm. His strong arms moved with confident ease, his broad shoulders flexing beneath his shirt, reminding Clara how different he was from Samuel's cruel harshness. "Good morning, Miss Matthews," Caleb called, catching sight of her. His eyes sparkled with gentle amusement. "Did you rest well?" "Better than I have in weeks," Clara admitted truthfully, joining him near the fence. "And please, call me Clara." "Then I insist you call me Caleb," he replied warmly, setting his tools aside momentarily. "Would you care for a tour of the ranch?" "I'd like that very much," Clara smiled, feeling herself relax under his calm presence. Together, they walked leisurely, Caleb introducing her to each corner of the ranch. They passed orchards heavy with ripe fruit, grazing cattle dotting the open fields, and stables housing sturdy horses. Clara found herself charmed not only by the ranch itself, but by Caleb's passion for it. "This land belonged to my parents," Caleb explained softly as they paused beside a small creek. "When they passed, I swore I'd keep it thriving. It's all I have left of them." "You've honored them beautifully," Clara murmured, genuinely moved by his dedication. He turned to her, eyes filled with gratitude. "That means more than you know." As days turned into weeks, Clara gradually became a seamless part of the ranch's daily rhythm. She assisted Mrs. Donovan in the kitchen, tended to the garden, and even helped Caleb care for the livestock. With each passing day, Clara felt herself changing, not just physically, but emotionally. Caleb's steady support, combined with Mrs. Donovan's maternal warmth, began to mend the hurt left by Samuel's harsh rejection. Yet even amid growing happiness, shadows lingered. Clara often caught Caleb lost in contemplation, the shadows of past sorrows clouding his eyes. One quiet evening, after dinner, Clara finally gathered her courage. "Caleb," she began softly, her voice gentle yet resolute. "You've listened patiently to my troubles, yet you hold your own pain so tightly. Will you share it with me?" He hesitated, eyes searching hers as if testing her sincerity. Finally, he sighed deeply, shoulders easing as he surrendered to vulnerability. "Her name was Emily. We were engaged, but illness claimed her before we could marry. Losing her nearly destroyed me." "I'm so sorry," Clara whispered, reaching out instinctively to touch his arm, offering silent comfort. "I understand now why trusting someone new must be terrifying." Caleb nodded solemnly, his eyes meeting hers with profound honesty. "It's strange, Clara. I never thought I'd feel this way again. Hopeful, protective, alive. But you've done that." Her heart skipped a beat at his words, warmth flooding her cheeks. "I never imagined feeling this way either," she confessed softly. "After Samuel, I believed no one would ever see beyond my appearance." Caleb stepped closer, gently cupping her cheek in his calloused hand. "Clara, your beauty shines from within, far deeper and brighter than Samuel or anyone else could ever comprehend." Emotion tightened her throat, joy and disbelief mingling together as tears filled her eyes. "You truly see me, Caleb." "I do," he whispered tenderly, his thumb brushing away a stray tear. "And it's impossible not to fall in love with the woman I've come to know." In that tender moment, beneath the fading twilight, Clara finally felt the weight of past rejections lift fully from her shoulders. As Caleb drew her gently into his arms, she surrendered willingly to the comfort of his embrace, knowing their hearts had revealed truths that neither had expected, yet both desperately needed. Together, they stood beneath a sky blazing with colors, hearts fully unveiled, ready to face whatever the future might hold. The weeks turned into months, and the bond between Clara and Caleb only deepened. Evergreen's gossip gradually faded, replaced by warm smiles and knowing nods from townsfolk who witnessed Clara's transformation, not in appearance, but in confidence and joy. She felt valued, loved, and beautifully whole. One afternoon, while tending the garden, Clara heard the familiar clip-clop of horses approaching the ranch. Shielding her eyes against the bright sun, her heart faltered briefly at the sight of Samuel Whitaker. His demeanor had changed, shoulders slumped with shame as he dismounted and approached hesitantly. "Miss Matthews," Samuel began awkwardly, hat in hand, eyes lowered. "I owe you an apology." Clara straightened her shoulders, feeling not anger but calm resolution. "Go on." "I treated you poorly," Samuel admitted, voice thick with regret. "Seeing you now, I realize how wrong I was. You've proven yourself stronger and more graceful than I ever deserved." Clara paused thoughtfully before responding, her voice gentle yet firm. "Thank you, Samuel, but in truth your rejection allowed me to find the life and love I truly deserve." Samuel nodded solemnly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Without another word, he turned and rode away, leaving Clara with an unexpected sense of closure and peace. That evening, beneath the brilliant hues of the setting sun, Caleb took Clara's hand, leading her toward a special spot near the creek where wildflowers bloomed vibrantly. He stopped, gazing deeply into her eyes with unwavering devotion. "Clara," Caleb's voice was steady, heartfelt. "When you first came here, we were both broken in our own ways. You've healed parts of me I thought lost forever." Tears shimmered and slowly dropped to one knee, pulling from his pocket a simple yet lovely gold ring. "I know this ranch isn't grand, and I carry burdens I can't erase, but Clara Matthews, will you do me the great honor of becoming my wife and sharing this life with me?" Her heart soared, overflowing with joy and gratitude. "Oh, Caleb, yes. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring gently onto her finger, rising to embrace her tightly. Their lips met softly, a promise sealed with tenderness and passion beneath the endless skies of Colorado. Their wedding was modest, yet filled with joy, held in the town's small church, decorated lovingly by Mrs. Donovan and the townspeople who'd grown to adore Clara. Evergreen itself seemed to celebrate their union, the air filled with laughter, music, and the delicious scent of fresh-baked pies. As twilight fell and the festivities quieted, Clara and Caleb stole a quiet moment beneath the stars. Wrapped in his strong arms, she felt utterly cherished. "You taught me the true meaning of beauty, Caleb," she whispered, resting her head against his shoulder. Caleb kissed her forehead tenderly. "And you showed me how to love again. Together, Clara, there's nothing we can't overcome." Underneath the vast expanse of glittering stars, Clara Matthews, once rejected, now deeply loved, knew that her journey had brought her exactly where she belonged. In Caleb's embrace, she found acceptance, strength, and the unconditional love she'd always dreamed of. There forever began beneath those stars, hearts united, ready to face the future, no matter what it held, together.